Yarn you mob, Bruce Shillingsworth Jr. here. We're going to have this yarn in regards to the Uluru Statement and the fact that it is a colonial agenda and not in any way driven or the agenda of the grassroots First Nations people. Let's go straight into the evidence and firstly look at who's behind the driving of the Uluru Statement agenda. If you jump onto their website at ulurustatement.org, you scroll across to the tab that says About Us and click on where it says Our People. You scroll down and you've got a list of names that are the referendum committee behind the Uluru Statement. And there's a list of 15 people there. And we're going to look at, in particular, 10 out of those 15 people that are on the referendum council. You mob need to start looking at who these people on this committee work for and what the commonalities are. What those commonalities are is the fact that Megan Davis is a pro-Vice-Chancellor at the University of New South Wales. If we look at some of this other mob that are part of this committee, we've got people like Delilah, which is a scholar at the University of New South Wales. We've got people like Eddie, that is a lecturer at the Griffith University, that is a research fellow at the University of New South Wales. So we're looking at all of these commonalities that these people have. And what I'm specifically focusing on is the colonial institution that's sitting behind the driving of this agenda. And yes, you'll see that most of these people are all academics and they all work for universities, and we'll delve in to the roles or the origin of where these university colonial institutions come from. They were created in Europe in the Middle Ages by the Catholic Church. Yes, these institutions were created in Europe in the Middle Ages by the Catholic Church, and this is where we start to ring alarm bells. If you haven't been to any of the universities here in Sydney, I suggest you take a bit of time out, look at the architecture of that place there, and it would tell you the fact that it is medieval, and the fact that it looks like a church. They have played a big role in colonisation, in particular colonising the first peoples of this land that is falsely claimed as Australia. Let's go back to 1788 and look at the impact of the European. In particular, Captain Cook, in 1788, planting his flag, the British flag, on the east coast of this land they claim as Australia. Now we're looking at the connection that Europe has in terms of this continent and its relationship, and the fact that they are behind the driving force of the Uluru Statement. Now everybody is aware, Kevin Rudd back in 2007, he was the Prime Minister at that time, gave an apology to the stolen generation. We look at the people who incited or actioned the stolen generation, that put the First Nations people on the missions, and that are actually still taking away children from their families today. The Catholic Church is responsible. For those that don't know, missions were managed by religious groups such as the Catholic Church. The reserves were managed by the government. And what the damage they've done there is disconnected First Peoples from their culture. They weren't able to speak their language. They weren't able to practice their culture. The evidence to say that the origin of the institution that is pushing or driving the Uluru Statement is a colonial foreign institution. No one denies the fact, and there is an abundance of evidence. The killing of Aboriginal people, the stealing of their land, and the destruction of the environment, which I allude to, and evidence out there continuously shows through data and statistics that it is still happening. The oppression and the genocide. So in having that evidence, in understanding who's pushing and driving the agenda, then you're probably thinking, what's the point of the Uluru Statement? From my perspective, it leads to the fact that they want to continue to trick Aboriginal peoples into taking their land, as they have. That's been the colonial agenda from the start. The perspective from First Nations people is they don't want no treaty. They don't want no contract. They don't want no agreement. They don't simply want no Uluru Statement, which is a tokenistic, symbolic gesture. The Australian government, the First Peoples, do not want the Uluru Statement. Thank you, mob, for listening. Yalu.